Kara by Tony Robeson May, part of Justice the Series, from Redwall Productions, available on Blip TV. Her name isn't really Kara. Kara sounded like someone she wanted to be, or at least a version of her. Kara wears high heels, enjoys raspberry cheesecake, has dinner reservations, and secretly steals library books. Kara doesn't have to lock the bathroom door to keep him out when he gets drunk and starts yelling, then pounding, then whispers her name softly, very softly. She never wanted to hear that name again. She remembered saying bye to Trisha. Trisha was the only one who stood by her, supported her, helped her. If only Trisha had been her mother instead of her caseworker from Child Services. Trisha was hugging her so tightly she could barely breathe. Wiping away tears, Trisha told her how strong she was, then took all of the cash out of her wallet, all $73, and shoved it into Kara's backpack. She said there was no point in trying to hide from her because she'd come find her anyway. Kara still calls once a week, on Sundays, to let her know she's okay. There were 5 of them in a 2-bedroom unit on Asylum Hill in Hartford, to those who know. They shoved old towels along the window seams to keep out the cold, which was most of the year. Kara's leaving at 14 meant that Shayna was in charge. Now she had to be the one making sure Mom didn't see the welfare check when it came. Mom. Why did she call her that? Stupid habit. Elle. She wouldn't even bother to say her full name. Her Shayna had to be toasting waffles for the little ones, picking up hand-me-down clothes from the sweet fat lady down the street whose kids were constantly going through a growth spurt, and reading Dr. Seuss at bedtime. Stay in school, she said. No matter what. I'll send you money, but you better stay in school. Shayna had always been the smart one. Not Kara, who was the strong one. Strong enough to take on Elle when she had a bottle of whiskey in her left hand and an electrical cord in her right. And then she brought him home one day. G. They seemed perfectly happy, screaming and fucking and screaming until all hours. Then when Al was too passed out to play his little game, Kara was strong enough to step between him and Shayna and say, "Take me instead." She hated being strong. Most predators fixate on their prey. They ravage it, leave it a bleeding mess for all to see and then move on, but not G. He stayed fixated, at least on Kara. The occasional intervention no longer satisfied him. And when Elle became jealous, well, that's when Kara started making plans. Trisha had visited once when their neighbor Miss Benson complained. Miss Benson, the raisin of a woman who was caring when it was convenient for her, heard every cry that came through the walls, and never wanted to be one to interfere. She would have the kids over for dinner sometimes, maybe so she could feel like she was doing something. If she called Child Services, then they must have interrupted her reruns of Everybody Loves Raymond one too many times. Anyway, Trisha. Kara liked her smile. Plus, she didn't wear those stupid white hospital tennis shoes like the others. Trisha had boots, these ass-kicking black leather boots, and Kara knew she could trust her. She had to hide in a crowd of kids, duck behind cars, and run for a bus so G couldn't follow her. Kara made it to her office, what Trisha must have thought, seeing that bony little teenager pacing in front of her desk. She probably knew. She knew as soon as she walked in that shitty little apartment. She was glad to see Kara, and made her a bowl of shrimp-flavored ramen noodles from her drawer, and she said it. Kara couldn't remember the last time she heard those words, "I'm glad to see you." She didn't say much, only asking questions like what would happen to Shayna, the little ones. Didn't even ask about Elle. When Trisha brought her up, Kara acted like she didn't care. Trisha wrote her phone number and cell on the back of her card, and told Kara to call whenever. She didn't sleep much. Neither did Kara. When Kara got back, Shayna had left a note that she took the babies over to Miss Benson's for dinner since there was nothing in the fridge. Elle was passed out again, earlier than her usual. Kara almost wondered if she'd been given something extra. Then she didn't have to wonder. G was waiting, sitting in front of the TV, and silent. Click went the remote. He turned slowly. She ran through the kitchen so fast he didn't see her grab the knife. She went into the bathroom and slammed the door. Click went the lock. Jeep pounded, banging relentlessly with his shoulder, reminding her of the big bad wolf. He was yelling her name over and over again. Then he stopped. She heard him slide his hand down the wooden frame. He whispered her name softly, very softly, saying, "Just one more time. Just one more time, I promise." Click went the lock. Pause. He couldn't believe it. He opened the door, grinning, turned his face from side to side. He stepped closer to her, closer. She gripped the knife behind her back and leaned against the bathroom wall. He came close enough for her to smell the cheap beer on his breath. He took her left hand, pinned it above her head, grinning with his yellow-stained teeth. As he reached down for her other hand, she quickly thrust it in his open mouth. Kara looked straight into his eyes, which popped wide open like a startled deer. Flick went the knife. Just a little flick. His tongue, that filthy tongue that whispered her name, was split in two. The blood didn't bother her. His screams didn't bother her. She savored them. Kara threw some clothes in her backpack, went to Miss Benson's and hugged Shayna. She told her to not go home. She called Trisha on her way to the bus station. Trisha had someone take Shayna and the babies to a house where they could be safe until placement was sorted out. She bought Kara's ticket, and she left. She left it all behind. Her name was Ray. Now, she's Kara. This has been an audio backstory for Justice the Series, written and narrated by Tony Robeson-May. Produced by Redwall Productions. Justice the Series is available on Blip TV. Copyright Redwall Productions 2013. Thank you for listening.